What's up, guys? We are here for the UFC Fight Night card in Abu Dhabi, headlined by Robert Whittaker vs Reinier de Ridder, and some would say the best card of the entire month. Even though it's just a fight night, they tend to put very good cards in Abu Dhabi compared to some of the other places. But fantastic main card. Whittaker vs RDR, Nguyen vs McGhee, Shara Bullet vs Barriault is a decent fight. Almabayev vs Ochoa is a great fight. Krylov vs Guskov. Crazy that both RDR and Krylov are returning this quickly, but with very different circumstances. RDR is coming off a huge win and is capitalizing on that big win. Although Bo Nickal's not necessarily the best opponent he's fought, but it was the most popular or famous fight of his career. And if he can get a win over Robert Whittaker, he's essentially one win away from a title shot, which is insane how quickly he can get a title shot, but he was a double champion and won. It makes sense for him to fight someone like Robert Whittaker, where he doesn't just have the Bo Nickal win. This guy was actually a very good fighter in another organization, and they're giving him that respect, especially after beating their built-up next star. Krylov, on the other hand, is coming off a knockout loss, and it wasn't some TKO with ground and pound or anything. He got knocked out cold by Dominic Reyes, and that was only like 3.5 months ago. Going from that into another fight with a disastrous power puncher in Bogdan Guskov. He has very precise punching as well as a lot of power. I think Krylov may have made a mistake taking this fight specifically this quickly. But overall, I would say as a fight night card, I'll give it like an 8 out of 10. I think it's great. One of the best of the year. There's a total of 12 fights on the card. The main card is going to start at 3 p.m. Eastern time. The prelims are going to start at noon Eastern. And I believe the prospect of the card, I guess it's Buchecha or Carlos Leal, but it's hard to say that Leal's a prospect. He has so many fights. Buchecha, 5-1, heavyweight prospect, coming from one championship, one of the world's best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners. It's hard to ever say that a heavyweight is going to be the best prospect of the card, but Buchecha is very good, especially with his grappling. So I'll go with Buchecha. The fighter of the card is Robert Whittaker, former champion, one of the greatest middleweights of all time. Crazy he's been relevant in the middleweight division for this long, and he's always like 1 or 2 wins away from a title shot. The stake of the night, the fighter that absolutely needs a win, is Mohammad Yahya. He's on a 2-fight loss streak, and unlike Amanda Ribas, who's also on a 2-loss streak, he didn't lose to anybody ranked, right? He lost to Trevor Peek and Kyle Fernandez. Although Fernandez is a very good fighter, he has yet to win a UFC fight, and if he loses to Stephen Nguyen, he might get cut from the UFC. The sleeper of the night, the most slept on fight on the card, I think it's also Almabayev versus Jose Ochoa. The banger of the night, the most explosive fun fight on the card, I think is that co-main event. Petr Yan versus Marcus McGhee is going to be such a great fight. I also think it's the fight of the night. I think it's the best overall fight on the entire card. Two great strikers have excellent combinations, both offensively and defensively, are extremely sound in the stand-up. Will Yan go for takedowns and throw McGhee off? Perhaps, but not a lot of fighters get these opportunities to fight one of the top contenders when he's not even in the top 10. So he's most likely going to give everything he has to beat Yan. And with that, let's go to Martin Buday versus Marcus Buchecha. Martin Buday is coming off a 2-win streak against Uran Sadibaldiev and Andrei Arlovsky. Before that, lost to Shamil Gaziev. Buchecha is coming off 1 win against Amir Aliabari, and he lost to Umar Kane before that. Umar Kane has had a very good streak of upset wins. He became the heavyweight champion and won. He was a huge underdog against Buchecha and the heavyweight champion, Anatoly Malikin. It'd be amazing if the UFC signed Umar Kane. But between Buday and Buchecha, there is one giant advantage that Buchecha has. It's the grappling. Buday is a well-rounded fighter. He can strike, he can wrestle, but nothing is necessarily at a high level. Buchecha's grappling is at a high level. He can get tired throughout 3 rounds, just like most other heavyweights, and then his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu doesn't look so great. But for like the first round, it's going to be a nightmare for Buday. He has so far defended every single takedown in his career, but then again, who has he fought? Then again, you can also say who has Buchecha beat. It's a good point. But even still, I don't think Buday is going to defend all the takedowns. I think once Buchecha gets the fight to the ground, he's going to mostly dominate. I don't think Buday is able to stand up quickly. He's going to take ground and pound shots, potentially even get submitted. Buchecha is also in very good shape as a heavyweight. He's definitely not one of the blobs. But where Buday can win the fight is in the striking, especially if he survives the first round. Because Buchecha has that common heavyweight power, but he could be extremely reckless in the stand-up. Just like when he fought Umar Kane. He took a lot of damage in that fight and was pretty much just throwing the right hand. Buday can actually put together combinations and fight behind the jab much better than Buchecha. So if Buday can survive the first round, he has a very good chance of winning. But I am still going to go with Buchecha. I think he does finish it in the first round. Takes him to the ground, rear naked choke, something that a lot of heavyweights don't even see anymore, are rear naked chokes or potentially any kind of like somewhat athletic submission. Buchecha is one of the few that still has a good overall submission game. So first round submission by Buchecha, and then he's going to be ranked. And then we go to Mohammad Yahya versus Stephen Nguyen. Mohammad Yahya is coming off 2 losses in a row. He is the stake of the night. He absolutely needs a win here or he could get cut. He's yet to win his first UFC fight. And as for Stephen Nguyen, he's coming off a loss to Jarno Aarons, which was such an insane fight. One fight of the night. A lot of people believe it was fight of the month. Before that had 2 Contender Series wins and an LFA win as well. Now, both guys haven't fought for a while. Yahya hasn't fought since August of last year, so it's been almost an entire year. And Nguyen hasn't fought since March of last year, so it's been over a year for him. That makes it a lot more likely that Nguyen is going to be more rusty than Yahya, but I still think Nguyen's the better fighter. Nguyen is going to be the better striker. Yahya is going to be the better wrestler. Although Nguyen has some good submissions, I think where he's going to shine in this fight is in the striking. He has excellent kicks, a very good calf kick. In fact, the very first one he landed on Jorno Aarons caused visible damage. His calf was blemished from the very first kick. The guy hits extremely hard and has some crazy one-punch knockouts, like the one in LFA against Jorge Juarez. 1-2 straight down the center, knocked him out cold. Now, both guys don't have the greatest defense. Jorno Aarons was landing that overhand on Nguyen many times throughout their fight, and Nguyen just wasn't adapting too well to it. Yahya throws those kind of punches as well. He could potentially land some good overhands, but Nguyen showed to have a good chin against Aarons. But the thing about Yahya is, he could be even more defenseless to punches than even Stephen Nguyen. And with the power that Nguyen has, with the leg kicks, make the defense of Yahya even weaker. I'm gonna go with Stephen Nguyen to win this fight by a second round knockout. And then we go to the last Ottoman, Aslan versus Billy Elekana. Both guys are coming off a loss. Aslan got submitted by Ian Cutelaba, a fight where he was the favorite. But before that, had 2 wins in the UFC against Rafael Sequeira and Anton Turkalj. Knocked both of them out. In fact, all of his wins are by knockout. He's never won by submission or decision before. Billy Elekana is coming off a loss to Bogdan Guskov, which is a higher level opponent than even Aslan is. And before that was on a 3-fight win streak before the UFC. He has a mix of knockouts and decisions, 3 each, as well as 1 submission. Aslan is the power puncher of the two. He's a lot more reckless to get the knockout and overwhelms the opponent with volume until they fall. Billy Elekana, on the other hand, is a lot more technical with his striking, uses better footwork, and throws better precise punches. So I generally like that kind of style against the fighters who fight like Aslan, but he did fight Bogdan Guskov, and although Guskov is a good fighter, his defenses aren't necessarily the greatest, and Elekana couldn't find that big shot to win the fight against him. Now, Aslan is a lot more reckless, and he's easier to hit than Guskov is, especially because of all that pressure he puts on his opponents. He's always there to be hit. But the only thing is, can his opponent withstand the volume and power and land that big shot before they crumble? I don't know. Elekana, I like his style against Aslan, but I have a feeling Aslan's just going to overwhelm him too. Definitely not a confident pick here, but I'm going to go with Aslan by a second round TKO. Billy Elekana absolutely can win this fight. He has a style to do it, but he needs to be as precise with his counter-striking as possible. And then we go to Amanda Ribas versus Tabatha Ricci. So Amanda Ribas is coming off a 2-loss streak to Mackenzie Dern and Rose Namajunas. Before that, beat Luana Pinheiro and then lost to Macy Barber before that. So she's been fighting in both weight classes, strawweight and flyweight. Pretty much what she's been doing her entire UFC career, but this one she's going to be fighting at strawweight again. And Tabatha Ricci's coming off 1 loss to Yan Xiaonan. Before that, beat Angela Hill and Tisha Pennington. Lost to Lupita Godinez before that. It's a very close fight. I think this is one of the closest fights on the entire card. I could see both fighters winning this. Ribas has the better footwork. I think she is the better striker. She's bigger than Ricci as well, but Ricci has a grappling advantage. Much better judo, which they are both black belts in, but I think Ricci has better top control. If she can get the fight to the ground, it seems more likely that she's going to win the fight. Whereas if it stays standing, Ricci can still land some good shots, right? I don't think Ribas is going to be as successful with her grappling against Ricci than Ricci is in the striking against Ribas. So Ricci could win the fight, but she has to cut off the cage because Ribas is going to be moving around the entire time, throwing jabs and front kicks and not the most technical striking in the world. And Ricci, being the smaller fighter, she's most likely going to be faster with her entries to blitz in with like a 2-punch combination, clinch against the fence, and try to trip her out from there. So I'm going to go with Tabatha Ricci by a unanimous decision. I think her grappling is going to win her this fight. And then we go to Davey Grant versus Damon Blackshear. Davey Grant's come out of win against Ramon Tavares. Before that, lost to Daniel Marcos, beat Rafael Sunsao and Louis Smoka, but he doesn't really fight that often. He's been averaging 1 fight a year since 2022. His last fight was in December of last year against Tavares. Damon Blackshear, on the other hand, is on a 3-fight win streak, 2 of those this year. So this is going to be his 3rd fight since March. 3 fights within 4 months is crazy. But before that 3-fight win streak, he lost to Montel Jackson by a very quick first-round knockout, and then lost to Mario Batista before that. Not a bad loss, knowing that Batista seemingly is one of the better bantamweights. I just don't see Davey Grant winning this fight, man. He has a very unorthodox striking style that seems to be effective against almost everybody he fights. He will swing big haymakers, he has like choppy footwork that's hard to time, and his submissions on the ground are excellent. The inverted triangle he got on the Sunsao was insane. But Damon Blackshear is good everywhere Davey Grant is, and he might be even better. His striking is definitely better. Davey Grant has the awkwardness to his striking that could be effective in moments, but Damon Blackshear's striking is fundamentally sound. He has very good kickboxing skills, excellent form in his punches, throws straight shots which could beat Davey Grant's looping shots if he targets them precisely. He has great leg kicks and body kicks, keeping his opponent in range, as he is usually the longer fighter. 5'10" at bantamweight with a 72-inch reach is not common. That's like the same height and reach as a lot of lightweights. He uses it very effectively. He's also amazing on the ground, one of the few fighters in the UFC to ever win by a twister. But of course, with the ability to get the back for a twister, he also has an excellent rear naked choke. I think Damon Blackshear at this point in his career has hit his prime, and I just don't see Davey Grant beating him anywhere, to be honest. I think Damon Blackshear is faster. I think he has better striking. He's the bigger and longer fighter, and he can grapple with Grant as well. So I'm gonna go with Damon Blackshear by unanimous decision, overall just outpointing him the entire fight. And then we go to Muslim Salikhov versus Carlos Leal. Salikhov is coming off a 2-win streak, crazy wheel kick knockout against Song Kinan, and then a split decision win against Santiago Ponzinibbio. Before that got knocked out by Rennie Brown, vicious KO, and before that lost to Nicholas Dalby. Carlos Leal should be undefeated in the UFC, but he is 1-1. He last fought and beat Alex Morono by first round knockout, and before that lost a controversial decision to Rinat Fakhretdinov. He should have won that fight, but you know how the scoring tends to be, and both these guys are definitely not going to try to go to a decision. Most of their wins are by knockout. That's how Carlos Leal won his last 5 fights. Now, although Salikhov is a very good striker, he is 41, and I just don't think he could beat these guys in their prime. Carlos Leal is essentially in his prime. He's very powerful. He's a great striker as well. He's faster, hits harder, more athletic, can keep up with the technique, and has a very pressuring style, which is going to throw off the kicks of Salikhov, right? It's very hard to kick on the back foot the way Salikhov wants to. I think once Carlos Leal starts to put forward pressure, the fight starts to collapse for Salikhov. So I'm going to go with Carlos Leal by a first round knockout. This was a mismatch. I don't think they should have Salikhov fight Leal. And I think the only reason why they're doing this is because Leal officially lost to Rinat. Like, he should be fighting guys at a higher level now. And then we go to the featured fight of the prelims. Bryce Mitchell versus Said Nurmagomedov. Mitchell's been exchanging wins and losses since his Edson Barboza fight. So he last fought John Silva, got choked out in the second round. He beat Kron Gracie before that in a fight that made absolutely no sense. There was no reason Gracie should have been fighting Mitchell. Before that, got knocked out by Josh Emmett. He beat Dan Ige, which was a big win. Got submitted by Ilia Topuria. And before that was Said Nurmagomedov. Has been exchanging wins and losses in his last 4. So he last lost to Vinicius Oliveira, who is probably going to be in the top 10 in the future. He choked out Muin Gafurov, lost to Jonathan Martinez by decision, and before that submitted Said Yokob Karamanov. So this is Bryce Mitchell's first bantamweight fight in the UFC. He is moving down to this weight class. Time will tell, but I think this is the better weight class for him. He just didn't seem as strong as the featherweights, but he's going to be big for this weight class, and I think it's going to help his wrestling a lot more, potentially even overpowering some of these guys to the ground and then imposing his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills. But Said's also very good on the ground. He has excellent submissions. I think Mitchell has better top control, but Said's going to be scrambling and going for submissions and all that stuff. Mitchell has a very good style for that too, though. He can scramble very well, as well as having good top control. The only thing is, can he get that takedown? Because Said is very fast, he has good footwork, always moving laterally around the octagon, which can throw off takedown shots, and then he can angle out of those to disengage. Said can throw some fast punches out there and try to land some of his flashy kicks, but if Mitchell fights behind that pressure, it's going to be a lot more difficult for Said to be as effective with the striking because it takes away a lot of his kicks, and those are his best techniques in the stand-up. So Bryce Mitchell's cage cutting has to be on point for this fight. He needs to stop Said from moving around so much, pressuring with his jab up to the point where Said is close to the fence, fake a right hook up top and then shooting under, can cut off that angle for Said, making him think that Bryce Mitchell's going to try to intercept him with the right hook that can keep him in place. Then Mitchell shoots a takedown, takes the fight to the ground, and starts winning on top, landing some ground and pound shots, but mostly just top control I think is going to win in this fight. So I'm going to go with Bryce Mitchell by unanimous decision. And then we go to Nikita Krylov versus Bogdan Guskov. So Krylov is coming off that knockout loss to Dominic Reyes, and that was only 3.5 months ago. It wasn't just a TKO. He got knocked out cold with 1 punch in the first round. And before that, he didn't fight for 2 years. His comeback fight to the UFC only lasted like 2.5 minutes, and he got knocked out in it. Going from that to 3.5 months later, fighting another dangerous striker in Bogdan Guskov, who relies on his precision in the striking, might have been the biggest mistake for Krylov, man. He might never recover from that Dominic Reyes loss. Then going into the Guskov fight, which he could get knocked out in, right? And this is going to be Krylov's 40th fight. When you're 40 fights into your career, you don't recover from damage that quickly. With all the fights and all of that hard sparring for those fights, I think Guskov will finish the fight if he lands one big shot on Krylov. He is the better, well-rounded fighter. He can strike, he can wrestle, he can grapple, he can do it all. He's one of the few light heavyweights that truly is well-rounded. It's just a shame, though, after the Ryan Spann fight, he wasn't able to carry that momentum. Didn't fight for 2 years, you know. Now, Bogdan Guskov is coming off a 3-fight win streak, all finishes. He submitted Billy Elekana by a guillotine in the second round. He was supposed to fight Johnny Walker. He finished Ryan Spann with ground and pound, and he knocked out Zach Pauga. Before that, though, he did lose to Volkan Oezdemir in his UFC debut on short notice. Bogdan Guskov is a knockout artist. 82% of his wins are by knockout, and 100% are by finish. He has never won by decision, and very close to Krylov too. Krylov has only won twice by decision. He has a 93% finish rate. 40% of that is by knockout. So most of his wins are submissions. And that is the way he could win the fight. I don't think he should be striking with Guskov that much. He has good footwork, very fast in the stand-up, excellent kicks, not as great with his punches. His defense is lacking there, and that is just disastrous if he tries to punch with Guskov. Guskov is all about precision. Very good at targeting the knockout shot, or at least to drop his opponent. His right straight might be his best punch, and he could do the same thing that Reyes did by landing the pullback counter shot, knocking Krylov out if he blitzes forward. He also has very elusive defense where he mostly relies on head movement rather than blocking punches. He doesn't like to keep his hands up, but that invites his opponent to try to punch him at his head. So Guskov does a really good job of slipping and countering. So Nikita Krylov has to absolutely take this fight to the ground, wrestle as much as he can, and try to win this fight through that. But I just don't think he does. I think Guskov is going to be ready for the wrestling and knock out Nikita Krylov in the second round. I think he defends a lot of the takedowns, forcing Krylov to stand up with him. Krylov throws a punch and Guskov just counters him with a huge right hand, knocking him out. So Bogdan Guskov, second round knockout. And then we go to the sleeper of the card. Almabayev versus Jose Ochoa. So Almabayev's coming off that eye barrage from Manel Kape. Manel Kape destroyed this man's left eye with a plethora of pokes. The guy was even throwing combos at his eye. But before that was on a very long win streak. But in the UFC, 4 wins in a row against Matheus Nicolau in a fight he won by decision. Same with Jose Johnson, CJ Vergara, and he submitted Ode Osborne in his UFC debut. Jose Ochoa has only had 2 fights in the UFC. He destroyed Cody Durden in the second round by TKO. And before that, in his UFC debut, he lost to Lonnie Kavanaugh, who, in my opinion, is the best prospect in the UFC. And he fought well against Lonnie Kavanaugh, so I think Jose Ochoa is going to be a future ranked flyweight. But can he get past Almabayev? So this is going to be a wrestler versus striker matchup. Almabayev is the wrestler of the two. Ochoa is the striker. Almabayev cannot strike with Ochoa. From Ochoa's southpaw stance, he's going to keep it as an open fight with Almabayev. He's excellent landing body shots with the left hand, very good kicks, very good footwork to line up his shots and evade his opponents. He is extremely precise with the left hand. The way he landed on Cody Durden. Durden was moving forward. He stepped away from the right hand and landed perfectly with a left shovel hook. Then slipped the left hand to Durden, landing a flush left hook, dropping him. If Almabayev stands with him too much, those are the kind of shots that Ochoa could be successful with. But Almabayev's wrestling is going to be difficult for Ochoa, right? Because although Almabayev has very good kicks like he threw at Jose Johnson, spinning attacks and stuff like that, he does wing his punches out wild sometimes and turns away from his opponent. He will literally turn his head away from the opponent when he throws a punch. That is a sure way to get knocked out against someone who's as fast and as precise as Jose Ochoa. And Matheus Nicolau was also a very good striker who fought Almabayev, who Almabayev beat. Ochoa is a different striker though. Nicolau doesn't pressure that much. He likes to fight in the center of the octagon. Jose Ochoa will pressure his opponent, so it throws off the kicks of Almabayev, which seems to be a common game plan on this card, as there are a lot of good kickers. Almabayev though has good wrestling, very good chain wrestling against the fence, and that could win him this fight. Ochoa just not able to keep up with the transitions and combo of takedowns, like when Almabayev shoots a single leg, pushes against the fence, transitions to a double leg, or lifts their leg up and sweeps them, stuff like that. I don't think Ochoa is necessarily as skilled to deal with the wrestling there, but it makes it a very close fight. But I'm gonna go with Jose Ochoa. Even though the chain wrestling of Almabayev can be effective, he hasn't really been too strong with it against some of the better fighters like Nicolau and Kape. Against Jose Johnson and CJ Vergara, like his wrestling looked like Habib's out there, you know? But when the level of competition increased, his wrestling wasn't nearly as effective. I think Ochoa is eventually going to be ranked in the top 10, and I think he's going to win the fight by a decision. And then we go to Shara versus Marc-Andre Barriault. So Shara was undefeated until he lost to Michael Page in his last fight. That was crazy because Michael Page never fought in middleweight. The guy just decided to move up for fun and beat one of the more promising strikers of that division and moved on like it was nothing. Just an adventure for Michael Page, but the first loss for Shara Barriault's coming off a win against Bruno Silva by first round knockout, but before that was on a 3-fight loss streak. He got knocked out by Dustin Stoltzfus, knocked out by Joe Pyfer, and lost a decision to Chris Curtis. Barriault is chinny, so I don't know how Chris Curtis didn't knock him out. I mean, Curtis seems to always have close fights, no matter who it's against. And that is the main thing. Barriault just doesn't have a great chin. Shara is a very dynamic striker. Not only has the punching power to knock out Barriault, but he is so incredibly fast with his strikes, with his footwork. Barriault is completely outgunned in this fight. The only thing he has is to wrestle. Barriault is somewhat well-rounded. He can strike somewhat, he can grapple somewhat, but I don't think at the level to avoid a knockout for 3 rounds. That's way too much. A single shot from Shara bullet, I think, could win this fight. Barriault's not really exceptional anywhere. He's like a jack of all trades, except the chin, right? That's like by far his biggest weakness. So I'm going to go Shara bullet, knocking out Barriault in the first round. I think Barriault's going to try to pressuring behind his high guard, shelling up to block the punches, but then Shara bullet just lands a huge shot, either a flying knee or a right hand around the guard and knocks him out. And then we go to the co-main event, the banger and fight of the night. Petr Yan versus Marcus McGhee, one of the top contenders, going up against someone who's not even in the top 10. That is so uncommon, mostly throughout the UFC, but seems to be a lot more common in this specific division. There has been 3 fighters who are lowly ranked that got an opportunity to fight a top-ranked opponent. First, it was Sean O'Malley, who fought Petr Yan. So Yan is actually doing this for the second time, giving these guys an opportunity. And last time he did it, he lost by a controversial decision. You can imagine if it happens again, right? McGhee wins by a controversial decision. Yan is never doing this again, giving guys outside the top 10 an opportunity to fight him. And it is Yan who's actually giving these guys an opportunity. He said he wants to fight somebody, and they gave him McGhee, and he accepted it. So Yan just wants a scrap, dude. It doesn't matter against who. So Sean O'Malley fought Yan, then Umar fought Corey, and now McGhee is fighting Yan. But regardless of the ranks, this is going to be a great fight, stylistically. Now, Yan's wrestling could get him an easy win if McGhee doesn't have good takedown defense. But if McGhee is able to defend the takedowns, then the striking exchanges between them two are going to be so high level. McGhee's striking is a lot better than his rank says. McGhee might be like top 5 strikers in this division. He has the precision, he has the power. He's not necessarily fast, but when you have that level of timing with your shots, why do you even need speed at that point, right? Timing beats speed, and you see that in his fights. Like Jonathan Martinez was faster than him, but he times his shots so perfectly. He's more of a combination striker. Yan is very good at that too, though. But Yan is even better at resetting after each exchange and winning each striking exchange, whether throwing one strike or multiple strikes. But where McGhee has excellent precision, so does Yan. In fact, Yan has a higher striking accuracy rate. 54% of his strikes land, 48% of McGhee's land. Now, both are some of the best fighters at making reads in a fight. Yan gradually gets better throughout rounds. The first round is usually his weakest, then he keeps getting better after as he makes more reads and starts countering them. Marcus McGhee does the same thing though. McGhee is very good as the fight goes on, but he also is very strong in the first round as well. So these are 2 highly technical fighters with high striking IQ. Absent the ground and need from Yan against Aljo, other than that, he's usually a very intelligent fighter in there. One of the best striking IQ fighters in the UFC. But McGhee has shown very high intellect in his fights so far. I mean, McGhee would put together combinations like extending with the left straight to hop on the outside lead foot, and while in the southpaw stance, he throws a right hook, left hand, and then the high kick behind it, same side combination, ending his combo with a fade out check right hook. Just extensive combinations like that. Stepping into positions to not only land his own shots, but to evade his opponents as well, all within one combination. Both of them can fight in both stances, orthodox and southpaw. Both are amazing at counter-striking, like how McGhee knocked out JP Bryce, slipping on the outside the right straight, flooring him with a right hook on the inside, or doing the same thing against Gustin Bolaños, but in the opposite stance, in the southpaw stance, slipped on the outside the left hand, and then finished the fight with his left straight on the inside. Marcus McGhee has such an entertaining and high-level striking style that only someone like Yan can match with the same type of excitement as well as skill. Perhaps even more skill. We'll see. Yan also has great combinations, but I think he is better at using his guard to defend shots and then countering over those. He did that against Sean O'Malley, for an example. And honestly, I think the one thing about Yan striking that can win the fight for McGhee is the fact that sometimes he stands still. It is very tough to be effective with that against someone like McGhee, because McGhee's not standing in front of you. McGhee will enter at an angle, land body and head shots around that guard, and then fade out on Yan's counter, just like he always throws, to land his own. Yan has to be offensively present more than he usually is. He needs to be throwing more with McGhee or be the initiator in some of these striking exchanges. So sitting behind his own high guard to look for an opening for a counter isn't going to work as well against McGhee. And also with that, McGhee throws a lot of feints forward, so it could put Yan in the defensive and throw off some of his counters, and that could create openings for McGhee to land his shots after. Like if McGhee shows his left hand from southpaw and gets Yan to shell up into his high guard, that right there could create openings for him to land a body shot or something like that, or throw another feint forward, and then Yan throws a counter at nothing, and then McGhee rips his own shots after. But the big factor for Yan is his wrestling. We don't know how good Marcus McGhee's takedown defense is. So far, he's defended every takedown. He has defended a total of 7 takedowns, 1 from JP Bryce and 6 from Journey Newson. 100% takedown defensive rate so far. Yan has great takedowns, although he doesn't always go for them. The best display of his wrestling was against Aljamain Sterling as well as Davison Figueiredo. He has the traditional shots like the doubles and singles, but also those outside step trips. They landed both on Davison and Aljo. Can he land the same thing on McGhee? I don't think it's going to be as successful because McGhee's stance is a lot more compact than Aljo and Davison, who are standing so wide and bladed, right? Their stance is so wide that it's easy to step out on the outside of the lead foot and land those takedowns. It's someone like McGhee, who is a lot more narrow with his stance, but also switches constantly. He's always switching stance. He switches even more than Jan does, and Jan switches a lot. So although I think McGhee could do very well in the striking with Jan, I think Jan's wrestling is going to make a difference here. And if he's more aggressive, his striking will also be more effective. We even saw with Jonathan Martinez, when he was able to get McGhee on the back foot, a lot more of his strikes were able to land. But when McGhee is going forward, his combinations could be very hard to defend. So I'm going to go with Jan in this fight. I think he's going to have higher fight IQ, and I think his wrestling is going to make a big difference in him winning. So I'm going to go with Petr Yan by decision. And then we go to the main event. Robert Whittaker versus Reinier de Ridder. RDR just beat Bo Nickel 2.5 months ago and rise through the rankings to now fight top contender, former champion, one of the most relevant middleweights in history. This is a huge step up for RDR. Well, Robert Whittaker is coming off a loss to Hamza Chimaev where he got submitted in the first round. Before that, had 2 wins in a row against Ikram Aliskerov and Paulo Costa. Knocked out Aliskerov, decision win against Costa. And then before that, lost to the current champion, Dricus, by second round TKO. RDR is on a 4-fight win streak. Undefeated 3-0 in the UFC so far. He defeated Bo Nickel by second round knockout, submitted Kevin Holland in the first round, and submitted Gerald Meerschaert in the third round, who was his most difficult opponent so far. Gerald Meerschaert was the hardest fight for RDR so far in the UFC. More difficult than Bo Nickel and Kevin Holland. He was the former 2-division champion and 1. He was the heavyweight and light heavyweight champion. Okay, this is starting to feel like the Dricus fight all over again, because where does RDR beat Whittaker? We had the same exact thought before. Where does Dricus beat Whittaker? Where does RDR beat Whittaker? RDR is better on the ground. He's better with his submissions. He's a lot bigger than Whittaker, but we said the same thing about Dricus, dude. He was bigger and better with submissions. Nobody thought that Dricus would drop Whittaker and then finish him in the second round. Nobody thought that he would take him down and hold him down in the first round. I honestly don't know how Reinier de Ridder wins, which means he's going to win, right? This has happened before. RDR striking is so sloppy. It's so gumpy. It looks so unathletic, very slow, but it works. And he has a very long jab, good knees to the body, long hooks when the opponent tries to disengage. But Whittaker moves a lot more linearly, and RDR has to know that when he shoots takedowns. Whittaker's going to try to defend that by moving in a straight line away from it. The only question is RDR so much bigger and stronger that Whittaker cannot defend the takedown? Whittaker is so much better of a striker. He has so much better footwork. He has very good takedown defense. RDR's striking defense is almost non-existent. He just picks up his hands, sometimes leans away and stuff and Gerald Meerschaert was able to cut angles and land shots. Robert Whittaker can absolutely do the same exact thing, dude. So I'm going with Robert Whittaker by a third round TKO. I think RDR is just too hittable. His striking defense is abysmal. Yes, he's a lot bigger. He might be stronger. He has a very good ground game. Whittaker's so much faster though. He has excellent footwork. He has good takedown defense in general when he's not fighting Hamza Chimaev and Dricus. I'm going with Whittaker, putting a jab in RDR's face the entire fight and landing right overhands until he finishes it. So Robert Whittaker, third round TKO. There's no way Plot Armor beats Whittaker again. Okay, Whittaker is a slight favorite over RDR. I think he should be a bigger favorite, but I understand the enigma that is RDR. He could pull it off. So, okay, I could agree with that. Jan is a 4-1 favorite over McGhee. I think the fight's a lot closer than that. If Jan's the favorite, I could see him being like roughly the same as Whittaker. Bryce Mitchell's a slight favorite over Said Nurmagomedov. I agree with that. Shara Bullet is a 7-1 favorite over Marc-Andre Barriault. I agree with that as well. He is the biggest favorite on the card. So I guess it's not really worth it to put anything on Shara Bullet. Nikita Krylov is the favorite over Bogdan Guskov. 2-1 favorite. Interesting. Amanda Ribas is a favorite against Tabatha Ricci. About 2-1 favorite. Well, I did pick a lot of underdogs in this one. Carlos Leal, big favorite over Muslim Salikhov. Makes sense. I think he should probably be the biggest favorite, but he should absolutely win that fight. Aslan, a big favorite over Billy Elekana. I think the odds should be a lot closer than that. Elekana can win the fight. I think Aslan's going to TKO him. Also, Almabayev and Jose Ochoa is a pick'em. I agree with that, actually. I think the fight is very close. Buchecha is a 3-1 favorite over Martin Buday. I agree with that. Stephen Nguyen is a 4-1 favorite over Mohammad Yahya. He's too big of a favorite. I think he should be closer to a 3-1 favorite than a 4-1 favorite. Blackshear is a big favorite over Davey Grant. I agree with that as well. So it's going to be an exciting card. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, make sure to give it a like. Make sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Leave in the comments below who you guys think are going to win these fights. And I'll see you guys in the next video.